Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're going to discuss miracles and whether or not they are scientific. Now, have you ever heard this one before? Right? Miracles are not scientific. Therefore, miracles don't happen. Right. If you've been an evangelist or a Christian for any period of time, if you've ever spoken to other people, you would have heard this one. There's just no two ways about it. Now, how on earth is a Christian supposed to respond to this? Miracles are not scientific. Right. Now, it's tough to define exactly what a miracle is because we're not entirely sure what it is. Is it coincidence? Is it providence? Is it, so that can be a little bit tricky. But essentially speaking, in its most basic, most raw form, a religious experience is basically something that happens that normally doesn't happen or normally couldn't happen, something that's technically somewhat impossible as far as we can tell, right? And not even that, sometimes it can just be a ridiculously absurdly coincidental case of providence, right? Where it's like, that was just so perfectly timed, and a lot of people want to brush that off to coincidence. Now here's the thing, right? Is it unscientific? Well, no. Because if you didn't actually know anything about science, then how would you know what is or is not possible? Take the birth of Jesus, right? Where immaculate conception, right? there was no sexual intercourse, right? We would call that a miracle. Now here's the thing, the only reason why we can call it a miracle is because we know where babies come from, right? We know how babies are made, right? There's a scientific fact that you need sperm and egg there and to get a baby. End of story, right? So if we didn't know the scientific regularity, then we wouldn't have the criteria by which to identify what a miracle is in the first place, right? It's only because we know science that we can then identify what a miracle is, because if we didn't have the scientific facts saying this is what normally happens, then you wouldn't know what normally happens, and therefore then you would never know what a miracle is. It's like, oh, well, that happened. Well, today the sun shines, tomorrow the sun doesn't shine. Big deal, right? Things just randomly happen all over the place. Today pigs fly, tomorrow pigs don't fly. So it's only because we understand regularities in the world, in nature, in science, that this is what 99.9% of the time, this is what happens, right? If we didn't have that scientific basis, that scientific understanding, then only then could there be no such thing as miracles, because then everything could be expected. And interestingly enough, the atheistic worldview kind of actually allows for that sort of thing, because when you talk about the multiverse, for example, it's like everything that can happen does happen. So therefore, out there is a universe in which someone like Superman exists. If it's possible for someone like Superman to exist, then Superman, in their view, in their world, as in the world ensemble, then Superman exists. So, far from being unscientific, right? Where Christians are constantly, and you would have heard it being, you're unscientific and miracles, blah de blah de blah. It's like, no, right? The only reason why we have the category of miracles in the first place is because we have a scientific understanding of how things usually are. Take the resurrection of Jesus, right? A lot of people say, well, that's unscientific. Well, no, that's absolute nonsense, right? Because you need to understand what Christians are saying. We're not saying that Christ rose naturally from the dead, okay? He didn't rise naturally. People don't naturally rise from the dead. And that's a scientific fact. It agrees with science, right? Yeah, with science. Well, people don't naturally, well, duh. We know people don't naturally rise from the dead. But that's not what Christians are saying. Christians are saying that Jesus rose supernaturally from the dead, because we understand that there is a natural law that says people don't rise from the dead by themselves. It's that simple, because we understand the scientific regularities. And as far as that goes, really, that is that when it comes to miracles. Like I said, it is tough to identify, to separate miracle from coincidence and things of that sort. I often, and I think that's one of the dangers. People get irritated with Christians because you do get those people that want to see every every incident, every coincidence, oh, that was a miracle. It's like, well, ease up a little bit as well, because God's not your maid or your nanny. Everything is a miracle and stuff like that. So, and I think that's where some of the backlash comes from. Christians, like anyone else really, can overdo things a little bit. So miracles definitely happen. And if you look at the Bible, right, there seems like there's a lot of miracles going on all the time. But if you think about the fact that the Bible spans a period of like 4,500 years, you need to understand that for the amount of time there is, right, that the Bible covers, and to the ratio of how many miracles are reported, essentially, and you had to spread that over time, essentially you've only got like a handful of miracles happening like every 100 years. There's over that grand space of time. And that goes to show, and it ties in with the fact that when God designed the universe, he designed the universe according to a set of laws, and that those set of laws were supposed to, he's like an engineer. He designed the universe governed by a set of laws so that everything runs like clockwork on its own. God is not our God. The Christian God is not like the God of Islam or the God of the pagans, where he's capricious, where he's constantly interfering. That's not his interest at all. The regularities are supposed to crack on, right? And the only way, for example, when you talk about morality, that your choices can have any meaningful consequence is if those regularities are in place. I know that if I do this, then that, and if I do that, then that. So that was his intention. It's not God's remit to constantly be interfering all the time with miracles all the time on the behalf of his people. It's like he said, he expects us that we need to abide by the truth and do the right thing and get with the program. Otherwise, we're going to suffer the consequences. And so, God's not constantly trying to fiddle around all the time. So miracles do happen, but we should never expect, and the Bible doesn't even support this, we shouldn't expect that there's miracles left, right, and center all the time, because just because you're a Christian now, every second of your life there's going to be miracles all over the place. Not at all. There needs to be consequences. The regularities. God set up a lawful universe, and it's only because there is a lawful universe that is run by laws, only upon those criterias, then when something miraculous or unnatural or unusual happens, that's why we can tell. That's the only reason why we can tell, is because we know science. So the fact that we affirm that a miracle is a miracle is not a denial of science. It's an affirmation of the discovery of scientific laws. And it's that simple. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this helps you. Ta-ta for now. And thanks for coming around. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Help me out a lot. Cheerio.